Zhilin. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's continue to discuss this paper. So during the discussion, any question, just raise your hands. Don't be hesitate. And the green transaction, evidence from corporate green revenues. This is a working paper, still not yet published in the formal journal, but it's already a very good topic and it was written very well. The motivation and the research questions in this paper is climate change has become a defining economic and financial risk. In 2015, Paris Agreement set a new global standard for emission reduction and sustainability alignment. So each firm have to complement and align with this target during the deadline. So existing metrics such as ESG scores or emission data actually only reflect operational behavior rather than like a firm how to generate green revenue from all this data. So this dimension was missing. So in this paper, we can see that the authors thinks that the investor and policymaker actually seek solid evidence on which firms are truly driving the green transition, rather than just claim that they are driving the transition. So we have data and the evidence to show the results. So the papers actually examine the public firm around the world. So there have 48 countries shift their business model toward green products and services after the Paris Agreement, and also to examine what drives this transaction in total. So from the abstract, we can see that the key important results, they find that the green revenue grew at an accelerated pace after the agreement was set. And this growth has been driven by, the first one is innovation. So green innovation can convert to green revenue. And green innovation was measured by green patents. So this is a measurement that made this paper so special. As well as another dimension, which is also very important, is institutional ownership. Like you guys might ever heard that the Blackstone and some mutual fund, some banking, and some US American Merrill Lynch, and so on. All this institutional ownership will have influential impact on whether the firm can compromise this Paris Agreement. So this is the second important results. And the last result is the green alpha. So usually the paper find a modest evidence of green alpha. That means after Paris Agreement, actually there have some impact on stock return if the firm are conducting, doing green transition, and the stock price might reflect this revenue. So the green alpha is positive, can be observed in US stock. This is in journal, the paper 5. So very, very important is the global database. And the metrics are very special. I think it's the first one to use this data. So 48 countries, time period 15 years, around 10 sectors, 46 subsectors, and using the Financial Times Stock Exchange, Russell GRCS, Green Revenue Classification System. So you have to purchase this database before doing this paper. I checked the data from the vendor and found that the green revenue this Financial Times provided are a little different from the other vendors. So that will be very important for the writers that they can do some robustness tests because the data provider might provide different items and dimension related to the green revenue. And this paper using differences in differences framework. So contribute to the literature depending on you are focused on innovation literature or institutional investor literature, or you focus on like greenings, excess return, capital market, or you focus on just green revenue. So depending on which focus you are examining, but this paper contributes to 3 dimensions of the literature. So this is the hypothesis that I gave them that can help you to understand what the papers was doing. So after the results, I add additional 3 hypotheses into the paper. The first one is firm with strong green innovation, green patterns, before Paris Agreement experience larger increase in green revenue after Paris Agreement. So this is the hypothesis 1. So usually we should accept it, this statement. So what you are going to do actually is to prove this hypothesis 1 was accepted. So the hypothesis 2, I give them the second statement, which is firm with greater sustainability-oriented institutional ownership before Paris Agreement. Expand green revenue faster after Paris Agreement. So this is the second hypothesis I gave them. And this is the second statement that the paper was developing to prove. And the third hypothesis is the transaction effect is strongest in less regulated regions. So you are asking this. So, and weaker in regions already had a strictly policy like the EU. So more stronger is in like the US market. So the less regulated, strictly regulated countries, they become insignificant because the power already being dominated by the regulation rather than the market mechanism. So sample is very complicated. Institutional ownership from diversified sources, including 13F. And the data actually 48 developed and emerging market. There have 13,000 listed firms, but each one have 15 years. So we can get like 36,700 firm year observations combined with the other database which have green revenue. Only 3,000 more firms observations are effective. So only 10% of the firm have green revenue. Most of the firms don't have the data. So if they have no data, the green revenue will be given a 0. So this is another bias. You can, give them comments. If missing data, which is different from zero. Zero means we don't have green revenue, and missing data is we don't count this yet. So if missing data, the econometric method will delete all this observation. But if you count this as a zero, it will be counted into the sample. So the result might be biased. So this is the data and the sample. It's a very large database, and most of the firm data, the capitalization are larger than 100 million US dollars. It's a large one. And 64 subsectors, including renewable energy, transportation, and IT efficiency, and so on. And this is another comments you might be given then to improve. Missing values are treated as zero, whether it's right or not. And there have some important data showing that 6% of total corporate revenue was found. It's a large number beyond our expectation, right? So if you have the 100 total revenue and 6% was the average green revenue. And Europe leads the green share, the largest one on the top. However, if we count for the total value, and US, China, and Japan will be the top 3 countries. So largest share doesn't mean you have the total largest value. And also the paper showing larger and the growth-orientated fund actually showing high green revenue intensity. So that's a common sense sometimes we think. Larger firms usually have more resources, can seeking for green revenue, and growth-oriented firms have to be compliant with MSCI standard and scrutiny by the publicity or community. So they have to compromise their institutional ownership to align with the target. This is some measurement. And this graphing was put by me too, because I think the author should add this graph, but they did not. 15, Paris Agreement. Before that, we can see that treated firm and control firm behave very similar. But after that, treated firm, which is high Paris Agreement, which is green, high percentage before the agreement, high percentage of greenness, the firm was or have been significantly increased, positively increased over time compared to control firm. So this is a very good example for the shock to compare two groups, control group and the treated group. And here is the empirical model. Green revenue dependent variables, post and treated. That's a very special design for this paper because the design treatment, we usually design the post-Paris as was given a 1, right? But this paper set pre-Paris treatment was given a 1 rather than post. An interaction of beta 1 and beta 2 was beta 3. So interaction multiplied by each other is a beta 3. And these are fixed effect control, error term. So this is the empirical model. So difference in differences means we should focus on beta 3. After the Paris Agreement, And those firms already comply the green activity. How was the result lead to, so we can focus on the beta 3 to get a green revenue. But we can also check the post-Paris Agreement in general is the average term, and the average term about the firms before the shock. So very interesting, utility is top 2, green revenue. We think that it's a brown firm, but actually green revenue, top 3 are consumer, durables, utility, and manufacturer firm. So it doesn't guarantee or doesn't have any relationship between whether the sector is green or brown. Whether the sector was green or brown is not necessarily lead to green or higher green revenue. Correlation is not that high. We will show that the green industry might lead to higher green revenue, but from here we can see that it doesn't necessarily guarantee the results. We can see utility firms, manufacturer firms are brown usually, but they create the higher green revenue. And transportation also create green revenue. And also you can see that technology also create a green revenue, right? Many others. Energy also create green revenue. And some firms doesn't create, like a health technology is clean, but it doesn't create any green revenue. So there might not have significant correlation between whether the sector is green or brown associated with the green revenue, because we can see that some sectors are beyond our expectations. And you guys already present this. This is in revenue percentage. This is in value. So Euro have the highest percentage, green revenue percentage, but they don't have very large amount in trillion US dollars. The value is low. High percentage, however, their absolute value is not that high. Compared to American, highest value, but smaller percentage. So each country have different patterns among green revenue. Also bigger might create more value. However, their percentage actually are relatively small. European firms usually are very small. So their shares becomes relatively high. But a small firm can create only a small value of green revenue. So we can see before the event, Paris Agreement, difference in differences, we can see that's very flat, no impact, right? Green patterns. But after Paris Agreement, we can see the innovation is increasingly, continuously increasing. The same thing happened in institutional ownership. Before the event, very flat. After the event, institutional ownership on average is increasing with the year. So Paris Agreement actually have positive impact on green patterns and also on institutional ownership. So if we're using the color, darkness means the more higher percentage of green revenue. So here we can see this is larger than 50% of the portfolio. So if you have a larger percent of the portfolio which is green stock, then you will see this is the return. We can see that portfolio return is getting higher. Greenness, the darkness, the more green, the higher return of the portfolio. Light green is 20%, is lower than 50%. So more green and is associated at a higher return. More green is associated with higher return. So the investor in stock market actually reward this benefit to the firm. The same thing happened in green bonds. The firm to borrow funds from the market, the investor would like to be rewarded a lower interest rate. I can earn much less, it doesn't matter, but I can lend you funds to let a firm seeking for greenness. So the investor have another dimension now, not think like a profit maxima or cost of capital minima. It's not only in that level. Right now we can see the investor level is getting higher. They can sacrifice their reward to benefit those who are seeking for greenness. So I would like to purchase stock using a higher price or lending fund to you, rewarding by a lower cost of capital. So we can see that this is the trend, especially in Euro country. You go everywhere, you will not see the plastic bag. In America now, it's the same. You never ever see plastic bag in supermarket. You have to bring your bag, or otherwise paper bag you have to purchase, but no more plastic. And the container have the same package too. You will never see that the plastic package in the market. Very, very less. So this is the green revenue. And there have some errors, I think, because the real number actually is 3,000 more, right? So the numbers should condense to those who have the data continuously rather than the maximum number. So only 6,000 have this data, right? So we should reduce those firms who have all of this. And this is the mean average green revenue, 3% only. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, in total that in summation to green revenue like 3.3. And post the Paris Agreement, like half of the firms, half of the sample, and patterns on average 1.95. Green pattern showing a much lower number. Green pattern, like your pattern is to purify the air pollution and purify your water or recycling something which can generate some electricity, That's green pattern kinds. And if belong to pattern, this is a larger number. But green patterns showing a lower one. And the others, we can see the large fern in usual. And correlation, of course, if you have good revenue, you have a higher tier 1 and higher EU-TFS revenue too. But if you have a scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3, which is carbon emission, higher carbon emission may have lower green revenue. So that's a lower correlation. And this is a ESG score and also environmental score negatively. So results should be focusing on this term, right? Green patterns, after Paris Agreement, higher green patterns generate higher green revenue. So the revenue came from this driver first, especially after the agreement. You have a higher green patterns, and after the agreement, you might be generating higher green revenue. Right? And again, the same thing happened in post-Paris green patterns ratio, indicator or ratio. Using the others, we get the same results, alternative, green innovation, control for the fixed effect. Here, we can see the country. So European country, significantly in US country, but European country, I mark here, insignificant and insignificant. So you might be surprised what's the reason for that. I just mentioned that because one reason is European country already had a very strictly regulation. So this impact from green patterns ratio cannot dominate the regulation power or overcome that. So it becomes insignificant. It's one of the possible reasons, but may have others that you have to examine further. Here is the Asia Pacific country, Japan, China, all the same pattern as the US country. And also energy, we can see the same thing. They can't generate more green revenue from green patterns in this sector, no. So the very special, it cannot be the channel to generate green revenue. Triple. How about the institutional ownership here? We can interaction to, and we can add a high institutional ownership. What's happened in high institutional ownership? See that? And if we have IO higher, and we can see the result is much stronger, right? It's much stronger. So higher institutional ownership foster the green revenue too. Because if we add another dimension, high institutional ownership, we can see the significance is getting stronger too. And the greenness. So this is first let me let us see that the coefficient, more green, right? So if less green is negative, larger than 20 greenness, it doesn't have positive 2. But if increasing to be more green, it becomes here, post-appearance, become positive, but just 1 star. And the highest greenness, 80% of the portfolio. And we can see the result comes out. So more green, your portfolio return is higher. So the higher return was observed in this group, which has the highest, the greenness portfolio, compared to light green or without any green. It can be negative 2. More green is associated with a higher return. So you can focus on these 2 columns, more significant compared to 50%. And here, 3 star compared to 50%, right? As for the alpha, there have some negative. But here, we don't focus on the coefficient. We focus on the post-appearance agreement. And here is another important dimension. I just mentioned that cost of capital significantly low for the higher green revenue firm. So banking reward those firms. Bondholder reward those firms who are green, so they can borrow from the market or the banking at a lower cost. But earnings surprise doesn't have the same channel because we can see it is insignificant, either positive or negative. So don't say that because the cost of capital is low, so your stock price is definitely high. No, it doesn't guarantee that you have earnings surprise. It is a different channel. From the cost of capital, it works. But from earnings surprise, it doesn't work. They are different channels. These came from the market, stock market, from the banking sector, but these only from the investors and the analysis results. And here is the very difficult explanation of the paper. So we can see that long green revenue portfolio, take a look at the coefficient. When the greenness is increasing to 80%, we can see the coefficient is from 2.4, increasingly associated with 4.5. So we can see the green revenue is increasing with the greenness. More green have larger return. So this is increasing with the greenness. In the same result, we can see if you minus legacy or benchmark, we can see the highest percentage, the greenness from 0 to 80%, increasing greenness is associated with the higher green revenue and the portfolio return. Did I explain correctly? This is increasing with the portfolio return. So the magnitude intensify the greenness. Right? So this is the portfolio return. We can see that the portfolio return, the investor reward the firm. So the greenness is associated with the increasing return. More green, higher return compared to 50, 20, and the lower green. Higher green is associated with higher return in portfolio. The same methods using legacy minus deducted by a benchmark, the same thing happened. The greenness is associated with the increasing portfolio return. Increasing greenness and increasing return. Increasing greenness is associated with increasing return, portfolio return. The investor actually are very friendly, sustainable, orientated. So we have some conclusion, but I will let you say something later. Let me give 4 comments. The first comment I'm going to say is the magnitude and the mechanism. Actually, this paper are doing very good, but I think the green revenue should be divided by like a total sales. Using the total sales or total assets or like a R&D growth rate to count the total revenue growth rate or the green revenue divided by total sales as a dependent variables to showing the relative size and the real economic size. And also, the paper should reflect this increasing is the new entrance or the expansion of the existing green firms. If the existing firm to expand green activity and to produce or generate green revenue, that's another story. If the other firm entering into this sector, this is another story. So both can create green revenue, but the paper doesn't separate and to test more. So the reader might ask, which story are you doing? And my comment too is that Paris Agreement, you got answers that's a good shock. However, during the same time, there have EU environmental regulation, carbon policy, clean technology investment wave, another of event happened during that time. So the paper should use like a placebo test to do more, to confirm the parallel trend and to confirm the impact was definitely come from the Paris Agreement rather than those relative shock. So you have to do more to separate from 2012 and 2015, 2014 to conclude that it's from that event. And the next comment I will give the authors is the author can examine the heterogeneous treatment effect because the paper already doing like high institutional ownership, but story can be developed more, like a larger size, high R&D firms and the brown sector or green sector already. So can compare who drive the results, which firm or which characteristic drive the results. So low emission, high emission, or a larger firm or a smaller firm, or like a high innovative firms or regular firms, and so on. So this can develop much more story. And the last comment I will say is the selection bias. This is a general question. You go to the conference, everyone will ask you these questions. Because your total sample, 34,000, and you only have 3,000 have valid green revenue, only like 10%. Does it have a selection bias in the papers? You have to answer this first by yourself. So this is a selection bias concern, and the data was not fully public, so it also have transparency problem too. So the paper can use Refinity and MSCI data, different vendor, to conclude whether the result might be consistent in the future. And this is my 4 comments. And before that, I would like to see your conclusion. Each group give 1 conclusion. Group 1, and I will let you go after each group say the one thing. Conclusion.
From industry can also create high premium instead when industry not always create high premium.
Yeah. Brown industry also can create green revenue. We can see like a utility firm, manufacturer firm, right? Many brown firms actually create much more, a much higher green revenue. Yeah. Group number 2. 赖光武, hi, you. Conclude 1. You? You guys, conclude 1 point. Yeah.
U.S. from strong technological capability help them commercialize green innovations successfully.
U.S. firm.
U.S. from strong technological capabilities help them commercialize green innovations successfully.
Because alpha is positive?
And because green alpha is positive.
Positive.
Yes.
Yeah, U.S. market is very special. They promote this more significantly compared to European and other countries. Your group, one of you.
This research introduced program, and I know it makes revenue from environmental friendly products and service as a complementary metric to traditional ESG score, offering a more direct reflection of a brand's contribute to the green economy.
In general, the statement is if like a X-Y correlation, positive, negative, we usually have a logic, right? X, Y, dependent, independent, positive, negative. Saying that relationship only. In general, you are saying statement is right, but conclude like variables correlations, positive, negative, which variable affect the dependent. For example, you guys just present like an institutional ownership and you present a green patterns, right? What are the results? What are those results? Like what? Yeah, the second one, you guys already present a similar one. And this could be yours. You can say something like this, or you guys presented this one, right? Right? With higher institutional ownership, before Paris Agreement, actually we found experience larger green revenue growth afterward. It's just a hypothesis too. And after the agreement, after the shock, we can see that all the firms actually increased their green revenue significantly, especially those hold more green patterns before the agreement. So this is a differences, right? Any others? And group number U. Group number 2U. The last is table 10, right? Cost of capital. So usually green firms outperform their peers with evidence that they can borrow from a lower cost of capital. And climate attention shock drive their superior post-Paris valuation performances. But actually, this is too strong. We did not see the earnings surprise is significant. But the other dimension, the other table, we can see that the stock price portfolio, more green, higher return, right? More green, the higher return is associated. Okay, and anyone conclude one more statement, and then our class end here. One more statement around all of you, just one more statement to be the conclusion. Can anyone say something? Which part you think that we missed? You can add here. We missed something. We did not mention that, but it is important.李持佑，林佩贤。One more sentence, statement. Difference in differences.
had hurt without any scientific proof is the strong cause.
Before the shock, it is insignificant. Are you sure? No significant. Before that,
Before Paris Agreement.
yeah, we can go back to see that. Which one is? Yeah, do I miss something? Before means you only conclude the post, right? Where did? Oh, okay. That's a graphene. Here? Yeah, that's the happened. Yeah, before. Okay, I got it. Before the shock, we did not see any differences, and the impact is very flat. But after the shock, we can see the increasing green patterns and the increasing institutional ownership among the sample. Okay? You're saying this? Okay, good. Okay, nice. Any other questions? Okay, then our class will end here, and thank you very much for you guys' presentation. You are excellent today, performed very good. And I will see you next week to discuss another paper which is interesting, called the stock not introduced by the analysis, was introduced by social media. So you purchase a stock, but because I look at the social medias, someone recommend, they are not analysis. But recently we purchased the stock using sentiment and social media much more than the analysis. So this is a very, very interesting paper that we can learn something from that. Next week, come over here and we will discuss that paper. Okay, I will see you next week. Thank you very much for your presentation and participation. Very good.